lunch. We're going to talk about human rights. I'm the Director of Human Rights for DMH, and I am also a person with mental health conditions. And I like to say I'm a member of the club. And it's not something that gets hung on my door in the office, but it definitely informs what I do. And it's a very real thing. Statistically, I know that any one of you or your family or maybe a step or two away from you, there is someone that you will meet that you care about that may be touched by mental illness in some way. Odds are pretty good that people are going to have some experiences. And part of my mission, I guess, in the universe is to help normalize that for people, to see that the world has a certain vision of mental illness and of mental health conditions that's pretty stigmatizing. And it doesn't need to be that way. Yeah. So I'd like to start by asking each of you to be, the first part of any training I do is kind of exploring your own perceptions about things. So I've just shared a little personal stuff about myself, but I'm curious what your perceptions are of mental health, of mental illness, maybe even if you don't want to talk about what you think about it yourself, which I would respect, but what impressions do you get out of the media? Say, when you see things on TV or you hear about something online, what's the general impression you've been given about people with mental illness from that? Jump in, anybody, anytime. Go ahead.
This may be a more personal experience or whatever, but my mom used to work at DMH and now works at DHS, I think.
Yeah.
But so I always had kind of, I guess, the way the DMH sees mental health, I've always kind of viewed it that way because my mom had that standpoint. She also worked with people with mental disabilities as well as in foster care, etc.
Okay.
And I also grew up with a learning disability, so it was never something that was not talked about or anything, or in the environment that I was in. I also grew up in Brookline, Massachusetts, which is just super tries to be progressive with pretty much everything. So mental illness is not
it's
too
not
stigmatized where I came from, but I know it is pretty much everywhere else because even somewhere like Brookline, when somebody I was straight A student in high school and stuff, and people would be like, "You have ADHD? No, you don't. No, you don't."
Right. Or, how could you have a learning disability and get straight A's?
Exactly. And when I tried to go to get extra time for my SATs, they wouldn't give it to me because they said nobody with grades that good has a learning disability. So my mom had to go back and give them my IEP and show them that I've been medicated since I was in second grade and show that I have a learning disability. She doesn't have to get bad grades she's being punished for excelling.
She doesn't have to be in trouble. She doesn't have to be this picture of the wild kid off the wall and not being able to work.
And they were and she's involved in I was the president of Habitat for Humanity too, and so they were basically she is
overachiever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically,
making up for the learning disabilities and the ADHD.
If she is smart and well off, that basically there's no way she has a learning disability. Right. So my mom had to fight to get me extra time on tests and stuff because every single year they'd reevaluate it and be no, whereas other people who are getting D's and C's with learning disabilities kind of just pass through the system, and every year it would automatically be granted certain things. So, I guess that's a stigma that...
Yeah. Well, I appreciate this. Even though that was here, I said that you didn't have to tell your own personal story. I think it's very informative about the changes that have happened over the last 30 years, that this is your experience of your mom advocating for you to get some simple help, and, you're able to express a very normalized sense of things, which is really marvelous. Anybody else? What kind of impression? Now, yours was, of course, a first-hand experience. And I doubt that anybody pointed a finger at you and said you're mentally ill, although each of those conditions are something that other people could lump into those categories. So it's very normalized for you, which is really, really marvelous. And you got the assistance you need to be that much of an overachiever, and we're happy for you.
Yeah,
So,
Sarah.
but not everybody,
What?
you know, but not all of us, you know, are quite so, you know, successful at managing that. But I'm curious too, maybe whatever your own experience is that informs your view of mental illness, or people who have mental illness, and how, you know, we hear about stuff in the news that are bad things that happen. So I'm curious how you guys filter out, or what impressions you've gotten.
Okay, so I've been in psychology since like my undergraduate career, and I guess even though my parents didn't always agree with me coming into this field, and not just my parents, but also a lot of other people in my family and my friends, because those who weren't in the psychology field thought it was always dangerous, that you don't want to be working, why would you put yourself out there?
Right.
I talk about some places that I've worked and they get really concerned, and there's in general a lot of stigma out there, like you said, in the media. But I get it a lot from, you know, the people around me, and there's a lot of times when I have to talk about, you know, this might be the perception, but, you know, these aren't always true. But people definitely do have a bad perception about
Who the people
what
are that we serve,
right.
right?
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Sure.
I think I grew up with two psychologist parents. Yeah, so
Cheater.
and yeah, so my mom is a forensic psychologist, so like she comes home with like 8 million stories about all these people that she's seen. So I think I like personally grew up with a very sympathetic view of mental illness, and sort of seeing the side of it that's like, how horrible that this is happening to you, and it's like sort of, instead of, I think it's like, it's also kind of bad because now like when like people do really horrific things, I'm like, well, maybe they were mentally ill, like sort of like trying to see the other side of it. But I mean, I definitely think there is, or I'm sure everyone would agree that there's, just sort of a lack of understanding and information that people have. Because even last year at school, I took a course that was psychology and law, and there were people in the class that were kind of like, "This is bullshit," you know what I mean? Like, take it because you need the credits type thing. But and I was like, "Why even in this course?" But like that people, which we had this whole discussion about the insanity defense in courts, and people were kind of like, "I don't really believe it. I think it's kind of a BS thing. It's not really real." And I was like, "Well." You don't really know anything about it, so it's really, I think it's really easy for people to just assume that it's not a real thing when it's not like immediately present in your life. But yeah, so I mean,
this is so interesting for me. Now I'm wondering, the last two of you, that if you were not in a household with psychologist parents or people who work in the field, but have gotten more of, a view from someplace else, what's the perspective you've gained, or that you think is out there about people with mental health conditions?
Well, I don't have any real like personal direct experience with anybody, as far as I know, with many people.
That's
that
a good
have
caveat right there,
and,
as far as I know. That's good.
And actually, when me and Michelle were in Tewksbury, we watched a video of people who had a recovery video of people with mental illness, and one of the people that was in the video I'd play basketball with in Salem, at least half a dozen times, and I never would have guessed in a million years he had a mental illness. So I think it's like one of the things with the stigma is that a lot of people just don't. What I get from like the media and stuff, a lot of people just don't really want to talk about it. Like I think Sarah, you mentioned that yesterday. It's sort of just like very taboo, and that might be part of the reason why a lot of people don't know about it or have a good understanding about it, and then don't know what to think
There's
about it.
this weird balance, thank you, between do you hide it so that we don't have to stand around saying, get to know me and not my illness, get to know me as me and not my diagnosis, and hiding so that people don't have this negative impression. I think it's pretty cool that you actually have had a direct experience, because you discovered somebody that you play basketball with actually has troubling mental health situations, enough so that they're in a recovery video that was made in Tewksbury, so that's, that I think can be really teaching for you to know there's a lot I don't know about there, and there are ways this person must be helping themselves that's making a difference for them. Thank you, Matt.
I don't have any like very close experiences,
Yeah.
but I kind of have the same experience as Ashley, as to where like I've had friends that don't understand why I want to go into it, that
Right.
it's all theory, and different family members that are concerned because I'm interested in specializing in forensics.
Uh-huh.
So they're all, why would you want to do that? But I'm a very sympathetic person also, so I always try to be like, well, you know, like the people that get in trouble but have mental disabilities, they need someone to stick up for them and help them and see where they're coming from. And I've always just found it interesting. And I also have two like neighbors of mine that their kids have like ADHD and bipolar, and it's always aggravating because their parents will always vent to like, me and my family, and
Right.
their kids are always, you know, they need attention, and they just do it because of this reason, and it's just annoying because it's just like I've taken so many classes on it, and it's just like it's not really always attention. They just try to make up
Thank
other
you.
excuses. Yeah, like they're not very sympathetic at all.
Great. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, this is,
Thank you.
I guess, taking it from the standpoint, I also completely agree with that, but from the, I guess, media standpoint, is that one thing I found, and I'm guilty of watching these shows because I love them, but, you know, like the Criminal Minds type shows, CSI shows, where they depict, like, pretty much, I would say, everybody who kills in those shows have mental disabilities, mental
Right.
illnesses, and as interesting as those shows are, they paint a picture of people with mental illness as violent, whereas statistically people with mental illness are violent towards themselves, if any type of violence is showing, not other people.
Right. There isn't a greater preponderance of people who are violent who have mental illness than there is in the general population.
Exactly.
I think that it's just hard for people to see that, because you're right. That's it. I like those shows
Yeah,
too, but it bugs the hell out of me.
They're so they're interesting, but
Yeah.
I sit there watching them thinking, because then whenever it comes up in the news, somebody who maybe has mental illness who committed a crime, then it just becomes a sensationalized topic that everybody wants to hear about, because it's just like real life CSI or real life Criminal Minds, where it's like, oh, this person, they had bipolar disorder, that's why they did that.
Right.
Whereas people with bipolar disorder don't go around killing people and then cutting them up and eating them.
Right.
Like that's not what happens. And
Right.
it's just,
That's a little fraction, but boy, is it sensational to watch.
yeah.
And
I mean,
see
because
all those
nobody wants to
characters.
hear the crimes of passion kind of murders, even though those
Right.
happen, or the murders that happen because it was 105 degrees outside, because
Or
murder
a
rates go
person
up
is
when it's
just
really hot outside, because
dead
that's not
broke.
interesting to hear
Right.
about at all.
Wow.
So,
Well, this is the perfect example of how, thank you very much, you know, views can really be, the views can be similar, but, you've got very close associations with people or an understanding, or you get what other people who might not realize what's, right next to them, not know that a neighbor has a particular illness or a condition, but they get this view from everything on television. And I always find that, kind of interesting, but part of my goal, part of the thing we have to work with. One of the reasons that I get so excited about doing the learning lunch, yesterday I was with the young adults and I was being a very rowdy, kind of peppy person. I can be perky to a fault sometimes, which I'm not today, but because it was this huge gathering of young people your age, a little older, a little younger, who have experienced mental illness or are currently experiencing mental health conditions, and they're working toward their own recovery. They're at various different places, and yesterday afternoon we had a gathering of the young people and appreciation for them and giving them awards for working with other young people, and as much for standing up and needing to go through what they go through to get there, in terms of it's not an easy road. And the farther back we go in years and experience with people, the harder it was for people my age and people your age. And my own mental health conditions started becoming really evident when I was exactly your age. I can be frank and tell you that my own mental health conditions are a result of a real party of a childhood, which wasn't apparent to anybody else around my family.